Dr. K. S. Ramakrishnan is working as an Assistant Professor, School of Education, Tamil Nadu Open University, Chennai 15. He has been teaching science education, environmental science, educational technology and research methodology in various colleges of education and Tamil Nadu Open University for the past 9 years. He has guided so many M.Ed, M.Phil and PhD students. His current research areas are environmental education, educational technology and media and communication. He has conducted various workshops on ICT usage in education, Wiki Educator, e-content development and educational research methodology. He had attended many online workshops on Moodle, learning analytics. He has published 6 books and many articles in national and international journals of repute. He regularly gives plenary and keynote speeches on environment and ICT related issues at various national and international conferences. He has delivered 28 episodes of the program Pudiyodor Ulagam at All India Radio, Chennai, related to various new developments in science and technology.
Welcome to UGC CSE program. In this episode, we are going to discuss about the sustainable development, the sustainability, sustain. That means we have to sustain something. And here we are talking about how to sustain the environment particularly and the sustainable development. And in this episode, we will talk about the sustainable development, the elements of sustainability, what are the various components and the key sustainable development concept, the institutional gaps impeding the sustainable development, the guidelines for sustainability and some practical ideas. So, all this we are going to discuss in this episode. Let us define sustainability or the sustainable development. So, according to the United Nations, the use of renewable and non-renewable resources in a manner that satisfies our current needs, but does not compromise the future availability of resources. That means, it has to take care of the present and future generations. We have to manage ourselves, at the same time it should not affect the future generations. That means, we should not use them completely so that the future generation will suffer, and that is called the sustainable development. And we have to utilize them properly, the renewable and non-renewable resources. And according to United Nations, the sustainable development meets the needs of the present without sacrificing the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. That means, it is a balance between the present and future. The present has to survive, the future should not suffer, and therefore, it is a balance between them, that is called the sustainable development. Actually, what is the need for the sustainable development? Because the industrial revolution, it has started in the 16th or 17th century, and so people have started depleting the natural resources, the forest, the biodiversity and the coal, mineral, etc. They were depleted very fast, and it is very much known that the coal and petroleum, they cannot come for a very long time, hardly some 50 to 100 years, and at that time we may not be there. But what about our future generation? We have to hand over the earth in a better condition, or at least in a good condition, to our future generation, and therefore, the concept of sustainability has come into use. What are the various dimensions of sustainability? The World Commission on the Environment and Development in 1987, it has decided the 3 elements. The first one, the environment, and the second, the economy, and third the society. So, these are the three sides of the triangle and it is not possible to separate them. The economy is impacting the environment. Suppose if you are constructing a factory, definitely that will affect the animal, plant and other natural parameters, and at the same time the society that is depending on the economy and the environment, because the society is living in the environment and for their livelihood it is depending on the economy, and therefore, each one is impacting the other one and each one cannot survive without the help of others also. And therefore, if the system is to be sustained, then we have to take care of all the three dimensions. That is what the World Commission has declared in 1987. And the environmental factors, what are they? The biodiversity, the materials, the energy and the biophysical interaction. So many other episodes that we have discussed about the biodiversity, because there is a large varieties of plants and animals and each one is distinct and separate. At the same time, each one is depending on the other also. That is the biodiversity, the materials, the man-made and natural resources, coal, petroleum, etc., the energy resources, the biophysical interaction. There is an interaction between the biology and the physical environment, the climate, temperature, these are the physical parameters, the plants, animals and other things, they are the biological one and therefore, always they are interacting with each other. So, these are the factors of the environment. And then the economy, what are the factors? Money and capital, because the industry we have to start, it needs money and capital, the employment, the technological growth, the investment and the market forces, because these are something about the economy, the second dimension. And the third one, the society, the human diversity, because the human beings are not uniform, they are not homogeneous and therefore, a lot of cultural, linguistic and ethnic differences are there, and the equity, the dependence and the independence, because the equity is a must, and the quality of life, what quality of life that the people are enjoying, the institutional structures and organization, the government, the NGOs, the educational institutions, what are the institutional structures and the political ideologies. So, these are the factors about the society. And so, the health of the community, that can be represented by this diagram. The society, the economy and the environment, they are the three sides and their interjunction, that is the health. And what are the problems in the sustainability? There are problems and there are solutions also. The depletion of the finite resources, the fuel, soil, mineral and species. It is estimated that the fuel and they cannot come after some 100 years, and the soil is fast repleting, and the minerals and the species, around some 500 species, they have become extinct. And overuse of the renewable resources, the forest, fish, wildlife, fertility and the public funds. So, these are the resources which are overused, and pollution, air, water and soil, inequality, because the human beings are not equal and each one is not enjoying the benefits of the environment or the economy, and there are so many inequalities, the economic, political, social and gender, that is creating a lot of troubles. And the species loss, a number of species, they are unable to cope up with the new environmental order and therefore, they have become extinct. and so these are the sustainability problems. So, we have to address. And now, what are the solution? And these are some possible solutions. The cyclical material use, that means we have to recycle, they emulate the natural cycle 3 R's, and the safe reliable energy, that means we have to use the proper reliable sources, the conservation, renewable energy, substitution and the interim measures. So, these are the areas we have to discuss about, and the life based interest. So, what are the life based interest? The health, creativity, because we should not be monotonous. Then what will happen? The same the technology if we are using, then that will create a lot of problems. And the communication, how people are communicating with each other, coordination, appreciation, learning, intellectual and spiritual development. So, on one side it is talking about the material, and here it talks about the energy, and here it talks about the human side. So, these are some possible solution. We have already discussed about the various conferences which had been conducted throughout. So, 1962 the Rachel Carson's book The Silent Spring, it is the starting point, and 72 the Stockholm Conference, 87 the Brundtland Commission, Our Common Future, and 92 the Earth Summit at the Rio de Janeiro, and it is dealing with the Agenda 21, CSD, CBD, UNFCCC and all. And the 1997 the Kyoto Protocol, and that is talking very much with the biodiversity, and 2000 the Millennium Development Goals or MDG, and in 2002 the Johannesburg Conference, it is sometimes called the Rio Plus 10 Conference, and it talks about the implementation of the previous Rio Conference. And in 2009 we had another conference at Copenhagen, at 10 Cancun, 2011 Durban, and in 2012 we had Rio Plus 20 conference. And so, a number of conferences had been so far conducted, and so the sustainability is a result of all these conferences. And there are many paths for the sustainability, the good legislation or the governance, economic incentives, overcoming corruption. Corruption is the major problem in the third world countries. Most of the countries, the Asian countries are highly corrupted, and the environmental protection, the human rights or security, the infrastructure and some other 40 issues identified in Agenda 21. So, these are all the pathways for the sustainability. And the key sustainable development concept, one is the equity and another is the limits to growth. Actually, equity means the quality of being fair or impartial. That means we have to be fair to all the people. That means whether it is X or Y, there is no partiality, and something that is fair and just. And the concept of needs, particularly the essential needs of the world's poor. That means we should be equal with the rich as well as the poor. Limits to growth, it is talking about there are certain limitations, ecological, technological and social, which affect the environment's ability to meet the present and future needs. Suppose if we go on extracting the energy or the material from the earth, they cannot be replenished by the environment as fast as we are using, and the quantitative and qualitative limits, and living within the regenerative and assimilative capacities of the planet, and therefore, we have to go hand to hand with the planet. Otherwise, the materials may not be available or sustained. And the sustainable development implies the limits, not predefined absolute limits, they are not already predefined, but the limitations imposed by the ability of the biosphere to absorb the effects of human activities, the adaptability of human social and political organizations and technology. So, they are not absolute and they are made by the human beings only. And the economic growth must be made less material intensive. That means, we should not use materials so much, less energy intensive and more equitable in its impact. So, these are the points on the basis of economy, and the economic growth may be reduced or curtailed to meet the limitations imposed by environment, technology or society. And so, you look at the diagram, actually it is a old type of the industry. A large amount of energy is taken and it is given out in the form of heat, and therefore, the temperature of the earth that is increasing. And mostly we are using the non-renewable and renewable, both sources we are using, and here they are giving very high throughput. That means, a lot of pollution that it is creating, and the materials they are given out in the form of waste and toxin. And the society, that is a consumer society, that means, the society's motive is to consume. We do not care about the environment or other things. So, that is the obsolescent, the frontier civilization, that means, the past civilization, and it cannot sustain itself. And now, the sustainable civilization, how it behaves, energy is given, but it is given out low quality heat energy, that means, less amount of heat is produced, and mostly it is using the renewable resources, that is air, solar, etc. And so, the throughput is also low, and the materials are taken, and low volume non toxic waste materials are given out, and therefore, the process is somewhat refined one, and this is also industry, the previous one is also industry, but it is somewhat better industry. Therefore, the energy efficiency is attained, and here the cyclical flows of materials appropriate energy usage, and so it is a modern industry, and it is a conservation society and waste minimization and toxic control, and therefore, the previous one the consumer and this one the conserver. And what are the major gaps which are responsible for the non-implementation? The first gap, the fragmented decision making, because all the people they are not together making the decision, narrow mandates, jurisdictional rigidity, lack of communication and coordination. The second one, the lack of accountability, because the industry, the government and NGO all are accountable to the society, and when there is a lack of accountability, then that is impeding the environmental sustainability. And this is the traditional decision making process. The economy is given more importance, and the society and the environment, it is non-participatory and fragmented. And the ecosystem based, all are equal, society, economy and environment, and it is participatory and integrated. That means, they are integrating all together, and therefore, it is giving the ecosystem health. And it is a fragmented decision making, all the stakeholders they are pulling the issues apart in their own direction, the municipal, regional, provincial, federal, public, private, etc. And it is an integrated approach, the same issues are there, but all are coordinating together, and therefore, it is yielding some better results. And now, the sustainable development, that is already we have seen, the resources and energy use, the technological development, the directions of investment, the social, political and institutional change. So, these are the major factors about the sustainability. And what are the guideposts? The activities are sustainable when they use materials in continuous cycles, they use continuously reliable sources of energy, and they encourage desirable human traits, equity, creativity, communication, etc. So, when these things are there, that society is a sustainable one, and the non-sustainable one, it requires continual inputs of non-renewable source, it use renewable resources faster than the rate of renewal, it cause cumulative degradation of the environment, it requires resources in quantities that could never be available for people everywhere. That means, there is an inequality, and it is leading to the extinction of other life forms. So, when these are existing in a society, then that is non-sustainable. That means, it cannot sustain for a long time. And now, let us discuss about how can we achieve the environmental sustainability, what are the practical ways, and the neighborhood sustainability, the water, the waste management, the green space, the community space, the food and the walkable urbanism. So, these are some major areas where we can achieve the sustainability. Let us discuss one by one. The first one is water. Drilled wells, dug wells and rainwater harvesting through a system of cisterns and catchments. Even in Tamil Nadu also, we are giving more importance for the rainwater harvesting, and therefore, the water has to be used very properly, and the rainwater harvesting is one of the most important fact. That means, the rainwater is not allowed to go into the ocean, rather it is taken back into the soil itself, and therefore, it can sustain itself. The waste management, recycling, use of landfill to power sewage treatment plant and the composting. Therefore, the composting, the landfills and recycling, through these simple forms we can manage the waste. And the next one, the outdoor space. So, how we are managing the outdoor space? The community green space supports walkable urbanism and the pedestrian and bike friendly. That means, in many foreign countries, particularly China, they are giving more importance for walking and the bicycles, because for shorter distance we can walk or we can use the bicycle, and it is safer for children also, and therefore, the outdoor space, instead of filling everywhere by the cars and the jeep or the motorcycles etc., at least some space can be given for the walking and cycling. And even in India also, the governments are thinking to create a separate pathway for the cyclist. That means, for short distances, some 5 km and all, people can travel through bicycles also or even walking also. And so, the outdoor space and food, the farmer market. That means, the farmers, they have to come directly and they have to sell their produce. The backyard gardens, that means the kitchen garden etc. The buying locally or sustainably grown produce, instead of buying from somewhere else, if you are purchasing the local product, then that is somewhat good for the sustainability. And buying produce in season, that means, whichever is available in a particular season, that we have to purchase, and that is about the food. And the home sustainability, the home design, the building material and the interior product, these are called the green homes. The home design, the green roofs, you look at the home, the roofs, they are growing some grass. The solar panels in yard or on roof facing north and south to catch the southeast breeze, because generally it is assumed that the breeze that is coming from south, and therefore facing the north and south, and the trees placed on the east and west of the house. That means, by these small steps we can design the home which is more environment friendly. And here the drivable grass, that means actually here a car is parked, but you look at the car parking, it is not plain, rather some small amount of grass that is put up in between this space, and therefore here it is used as a car parking and it is used as a grass land also, and therefore these are all some technologies which are used for preparing the drivable grass. So, it is one new form of creating some green spaces. And the building material, the salvaged wood, the local materials, the stores like green builder stores, the sustainable insulation, that means the heat is not allowed to go out, that means very insulated houses, the recycled fiberglass insulation, the insulation made from soy, and double paned windows. Therefore, by using the proper building material, we can prepare our home which is environmental friendly. If the cold season, the better insulation, and in warmer season better the environment and the heat exchange, and by using them we can further improve the sustainability. And the interior product, the Energy Star appliances, repurposed hardwood floor and cabinetry, low flow faucets and toilet, because we are using a large amount of water in the toilet, rather low flow faucets. In most of the foreign countries, they are using the tissue paper and they are using somewhat a dry toilet, and therefore we need not use a large amount of water. And the compact fluorescent light bulbs, and in India also the LEDs, nowadays they are very common, and low or no VOC paint, that means the paint, some chemical additives, they are very less. The countertops made of recycled material, glass, aluminum, paper, etc. The recycled carpet or carpet made of natural fibers. So, these are the interior product. And the forms of energy: wind, solar, hydroelectric, biomass and geothermal. So, the energy resources also. And here you look at the building, in almost all the building, the top they have grown some grass, and that means a lot of oxygen is available and the carbon dioxide is disposed. And so, by using all these things, we can create the earth more environment friendly. And now, let us summarize. In this episode, we have dealt with the sustainable development, the elements of sustainability, the key sustainable development concept, how can we sustain, what are the concepts behind them, the institutional gaps impeding the sustainable development, the guidelines for sustainability, and some practical ideas. So, my dear friends, by using these simple ideas, then we can create tremendous impact on the environment, and therefore, the sustainability is very, very important at this present situation. Now, let us have some questions. The first question: define sustainability. The second: mention the components of the sustainable developments. And third: write the institutional gaps impeding the sustainable development. The fourth one: mention some components of neighborhood sustainability. And the last one: mention some sustainable home design. So, with that we have discussed well about the sustainable development, the economic, the environment and the social factors, and how can we practically implement the sustainability. So, with that we will conclude this session, and thank you.